I'm going to read chapter 3 of my new book that I'm working on. It's called Slang Through the Ages, A Historical Perspective, subtitled A Hysterical Perspective, because I think some of these entries are pretty freaking funny. So please refer to chapters 1 and 2 already up. I need to link them all together, which I will do as soon as possible. So this chapter has 3 subtitles, which are called Slang in the Middle Ages, The Language of Rebels, with 5 paragraphs. And the second one is the 1960s, Peace, Love, and a Whole Lot of Slang. And that also has 5 paragraphs. And I'm wondering if the reference, a whole lot of slang, is a whole lot of love, well, peace, love, and a whole lot of slang, or is it a whole lot of rosy? So it's either Led Zeppelin or AC/DC, and again, 5 paragraphs. And then the third subtitle is The Internet Age, When LOL Became a Language. And LOL is so dated. As I skim this, I see TTYL, which is talk to you later, or TTYS, which is talk to you soon. Chapter 3, The Historical Evolution of Slang Terms. Slang in the Middle Ages, the Language of Rebels. Paragraph 1. Slang in the Middle Ages was like the secret handshake of society's misfits, rebels, and those who didn't quite fit into the neatly tailored tunics of the upper crust. Imagine a time where the average Jeffrey couldn't just scroll through social media to vent about their feudal lord. Instead, they had to rely on colorful vocabulary that was as much a part of their identity as their questionable hygiene. The lords and ladies might have spoken in flowery prose, but the common folk had a lexicon that could make a jester blush. Let's talk about the rogues who populated medieval towns. These were the folks who made it their mission to turn the language of the day into a delightful stew of mischief. Words like scofflaw didn't exist yet, but if they had, it would have perfectly described the scallywags who'd swipe a loaf of bread from the baker while charming his daughter with a wink. The markets were alive with exchanges that sounded like a mix between Shakespearean insults and a barroom brawl, filled with terms that could make a monk's ears turn red. The rebellious spirit of the time was reflected in phrases that told anyone who dared listen, "I'm no peasant, I'm a free spirit with a penchant for mischief." Interestingly, gender played a role in how slang was used. While men may have had their own set of bravado-laden terms for their shenanigans, women wielded their slang like a sharp dagger, often using it to navigate a world that sought to silence them. The tavern might have been a man's domain, but listen closely and you'll hear the quick-witted barmaids tossing around phrases that would make any knight's armor rattle. Women could insult a man's honor while ordering a round of ale, proving that they were not just passive listeners in the medieval drama. They were the unsung heroines of slang. Well, of course not. Women were people too. Not only that, they're the mothers of everyone, including the armor-clad males. The beauty of medieval slang lies in its evolution. As the years rolled on, words morphed faster than a bard could tell a tale. Take wretch, for instance, which originally described a poor, unfortunate soul, but soon became a term of endearment for your rowdy mates. It's as if the slang of the time was a living organism adapting and changing like a particularly stubborn weed in a garden of roses. This linguistic evolution wasn't just a party trick, it was a survival mechanism. In a world where you could lose your head for speaking your mind, the ability to code your message was essential. In conclusion, slang in the Middle Ages was the language of the underdog, the misfit, and the rebellious spirit. It was a way to subvert authority while sharing a laugh over a pint of mead. As these terms evolved, they not only created bonds among the common folk, but also laid the groundwork for the rich tapestry of modern slang we enjoy today. So next time you throw around a slang term, remember it's not just a casual expression. It's a nod to the rascals of history who dared to speak their minds and have a little fun while doing it. The 1960s, peace, love, and a whole lot of slang. The 1960s were a wild ride, a kaleidoscope of color and sound where peace and love collided with a lexicon that would rival any Shakespearean play if Shakespeare had lived in a commune. The decade kicked off with the rise of youth culture, and with it came a treasure trove of slang that would leave parents scratching their heads and teachers clutching their pearls. Words like groovy and far out became the linguistic equivalent of tie-dye shirts. vibrant, a bit confusing, and utterly unexplainable to anyone over 30. It was as if the English language took a hit of something psychedelic and decided to dance around a room with a bunch of flower children. That would be me. In the realm of historical evolution, the 1960s saw slang morph faster than a chameleon at a paint party. Terms often emerged from movies, music, and the counterculture movement, reflecting a society that was both rebellious and creative. Dig it became a popular way to say, I understand, while hippie entered the lexicon as a term for those who preferred flowers over suits and peace signs over stock portfolios. I think hippie meant, I forget what it stands for, but yuppie was young urban professional. Yuppie. Let me look up what hippie stood for. I can just Google it while I'm on, can't I? Hippie, especially in the 1960s, a person of unconventional appearance, typically having long hair associated with a subculture movement involving a rejection of conventional values and the taking of hallucinogenic drugs. Hippies and spiritual seekers made their way to India in the 60s in search of enlightenment, kind of led by the Beatles, more or less. There is no acronym for the word hippie, but HIPPY may refer to the Home Interaction Program for Parents and Youngsters. Definition of hippie: a hippie is a person who rejects the mainstream culture and advocates for peace, love, and personal freedom. Hippies often dress unconventionally and favor communal living. They may also be called flower children. Hippie ideology: hippies opposed political and social orthodoxy and favored a nonviolent ethic. Their ideology was expressed in the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love. Hippie origins: the hippie movement emerged in the 1960s as a counterculture to the beatniks. Hippies were younger than the beatniks and preferred to call themselves freaks or love children. The word hippie came from hipster and was used to describe beatniks who moved into New York City's Greenwich Village, San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, and Chicago's Old Town communities. Evaluating the effectiveness of the Home Interaction Program for Parents and Youngsters. There it is again. So that's what hippie stands for? I guess so. What is hippie slang for? A usually young person who rejects the mores of established society as by dressing unconventionally or favoring communal living and advocates a nonviolent ethic. Broadly, a long-haired, unconventionally dressed young person. So, with the exception of the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wore a suit and tie, he was all about nonviolent protest. So I guess he could be considered a well-dressed hippie. So how about that? Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. I understand while hippie entered the lexicon as a term for those who preferred flowers over suits and peace signs over stock portfolios. Dig it became a popular way to say, I understand. So I hear a lot of people saying, you dig, and I just kind of abhor that. I don't know why. I mean, the main thing is I just don't like the people who say it, but whatever. So anyway, the language of the time was a reflection of the era's ethos, a playful rebellion against the stuffy norms of the previous decade. It was a slang that could make even the most mundane conversations feel like a scene from a beat poetry reading, complete with finger snaps. But let's not overlook the gender differences that emerged in the colorful cocktail of 1960s slang. Men and women often had different ways of expressing themselves, leading to a delightful mismatch of terms that could confuse even the most seasoned linguist. While a guy might describe something as heavy, a woman might declare it bitchin'. I've never really heard women refer to things as bitchin'. I used to have a friend, she was a baker and had a bitchin' kitchen, she did. The guys were all about depth, while the gals, the girls, I hate that word, gals. The guys were all about depth, while the women were clearly the queens of flair. This divergence not only delighted the cultural shifts, but also emphasized the playful competitiveness of the genders, each trying to outslang the other in a fun, albeit confusing, verbal dance-off. As the decade progressed, the slang took on a life of its own, much like the hairstyles of the time. The phrase, "you're a real square," became a badge of honor for the nonconformists, while "sock it to me" made its way into everyday vernacular, leaving many wonder if they had accidentally stumbled into a boxing match instead of a conversation. And of course, that makes me think of the hit TV show Laugh-In, where they also talked about "you bet your bippy," and it was just kind of I remember watching it. I think it was like 1969. I mean, it was entertaining, but it was just kind of square, frankly. comparatively speaking. The language of the 60s was a testament to a generation that was not afraid to express themselves, even when it meant inventing entirely new words or repurposing old ones. It was creative, chaotic, and utterly fantastic, like trying to follow a plot in a David Lynch film while on a sugar high. And that brings me back to me defining myself as being the sign of vertigo, whatever that means. In the end, the 1960s were more than just a decade. They were a linguistic revolution. Slang from that time not only encapsulated the spirit of peace and love, but also paved the way for future generations to embrace their own unique ways of speaking. The legacy of terms like far out and groovy continues to echo through time, reminding us that language is as fluid as the music that defined the era. So next time someone drops a 60s slang term into conversation, just smile and remember, they're not just talking, they're channeling a decade of peace, love, and a whole lot of colorful chaos. The internet age, when LOL became a language. In the grand tapestry of human communication, the internet age has woven a peculiar thread, the emergence of LOL as an actual language. Once upon a time, people communicated in full sentences, expressing their thoughts with clarity and depth. But as technology advanced, so did our desire for brevity. Time is money. Enter LOL, a simple yet revolutionary acronym that transformed the way we express laughter. It's as if the digital world collectively agreed that typing out, "I find that amusing," was far too cumbersome when you could simply slap down 3 little letters and call it a day. I mean, I don't say LOL in conversation, in live conversation. As with any language, LOL has evolved, taking on meanings far beyond its original intent. What began as a simple expression of mirth has morphed into a multi-purpose tool in the online lexicon. Need to lighten the mood? LOL. Want to soften a critique? LOL. Feeling awkward? You guessed it, LOL. This linguistic chameleon has become so versatile that one might argue it deserves its own entry in the Oxford English Dictionary, or at least a spot on a hipster's list of words I use to sound trendy. Who knew a sound of laughter could become the Swiss Army knife of digital communication? Gender plays a curious role in the adoption and adaptation of LOL. While both men and women have embraced this delightful abbreviation, makes me think of the acronym ROTF, rolling on the floor, laughing my effing ass off. Gender plays a curious role in the adoption and adaptation of LOL. While both men and women have embraced this delightful abbreviation, studies suggest that women are more likely to use it as a social lubricant. For them, LOL is less about the actual laughter and more about fostering connection. Men, on the other hand, might use it more sparingly, often reserving it for moments when they actually find something funny, or when they want to appear relatable while secretly trying to maintain their mysterious, brooding persona. It's a linguistic dance that highlights how gender influences our digital interactions, all while we collectively loll at the absurdity of it all while we collectively LOL at the absurdity of it all. That being said, I have to defend mothers, women, a bit, and that is, women, by virtue of the fact that they have a womb, see their children, especially their best children, their most beautiful and their brightest children, as their highest achievement, their greatest accomplishment. And I would too if I was a woman. That being said, that nurturing nature of a woman to inspire their children to engage in conversation with them is how they learn their children's personality and help to direct its development. And that they see that certainly as kind of their job. And we see that as kind of their job, frankly. So, yay, women. Now, let's not forget the offshoots of LOL. The internet, in its infinite wisdom, has gifted us a plethora of variants, and here we are, ROFL, LMAO, and the ever-controversial LMFAO. Each variation carries its own weight and context, much like how a fine wine can vary from a robust Cabernet Sauvignon to a cheeky rosé. Some might even argue that these acronyms reflect the emotional intensity of the laughter being conveyed. After all, if LOL is a polite chuckle, ROFL is a full-on belly laugh that might just require a change of pants. This evolution shows how language morphs to fit the needs of its users, resulting in a vibrant, if slightly chaotic, digital dialect. In the end, the rise of LOL as a language in its own right is a testament to human creativity and adaptability. We've taken a simple expression and spun it into a cultural phenomenon that transcends generations and geographical boundaries. As we continue to navigate this wild world of online communication, one can't help but wonder what other acronyms will take flight in the future. Perhaps one day we'll find ourselves in deep philosophical debates about the true meaning of BRB and TTYL. Until then, let's raise our virtual glasses and toast to LOL, a language that proves laughter, even when abbreviated, is truly universal. And that's the end of chapter 3. We've taken a simple expression and spun it into a cultural phenomenon that transcends generations and geographical boundaries. Yes. That gave rise to me wanting to do some research on international Gen Z slang. You know, if we have Gen Z slang in the United States of America and in Britain, England, and Australia, and other English-speaking countries, of course there's going to be Gen Z slang in every language all over the world, in every country all over the world. So gradually I'm endeavoring to, use the assistance of ChatGPT and others to find out the top 10, top 20 slang phrases used in Indonesia and Bangladesh and India and France and Spain and Mexico and Canada and all over the place. So I've got a whole bunch of videos, probably 20 or 30 or 40 online already that I did last summer. And now that's what's given rise to me embracing this as my first digital book written with the assistance of ChatGPT, actually with Word Genie, which I access through designer.io, DESIGNRR.io. So check that out and look for Word Genie. I think Word Genie, you can subscribe to it separately, and I haven't really used Designer. I'm just reading from the prompts that I input into Word Genie and had it give me this script. Talk to you soon. Chapter 4 is next.